Environmentalism is supposed to be about protecting the environment, and most people are completely in favor of that. But the environmental movement of today has nothing to do with protecting the environment. They're destroying the environment, killing the California condor with their wind projects and whales and...
Wait. Tucker Carlson just say wind projects are killing whales? How's that even happening? There are wind farms out in on the coast and stuff, but nowhere close to where whales live. Oh, this is hilarious. So I guess the right wing is now going to start saying wind energy is bad for the environment because it kills whales.
basically wrecking Africa with all the elements needed for their new battery revolution, etc., etc., etc. It's not about the environment.
Oh, so now Tucker cares about Africa when before they were just asshole nations?
It's some kind of weird cult around climate. And who better to assess a cult than Jordan Peterson, who is a famous psychologist and author. We asked him about what is happening recently. Here's the conversation that resulted.
Okay, no, this is hilarious. He's really having Jordan Peterson on as his guest for this. And the dude that just shared some fetish porn thinking it was China like forcing men to get get milk to give semen, when it was actually a bunch of white people in the UK doing some fetish stuff. This is hilarious. Yeah. Jordan Peterson has like lost all credibility whatsoever, and just like in a matter of like 24 to 48 hours. Yeah.
Jordan Peterson, thank you so much for coming on. Just to begin with the premise that the modern environmental movement doesn't seem to be doing a lot for the actual environment. It's my observation. What do you think that's about?
Well, I think the best example of that's probably both Sri Lanka and Germany. I mean, Sri Lanka is an absolute wasteland at the moment as a direct consequence of idiot, hypothetically environmentalist policies. And then in Germany, energy is much more expensive than it was. It's much more unreliable than it was. The Germans are dangerously dependent on dictators and the Russians. And
Wait, that's because they're using oil and they're buying oil from Russia. That's not because like some kind of environmentalist policy.
And that's all a consequence of hypothetical environmentalist policies. So even by the standards laid down by the environmentalists themselves, the policies that were put in place that were pro-environmental are failing. But there's something that's even deeper lying underneath the surface. Alex Epstein has made a fair bit of this in his new book, Fossil Future, but I started delving into this, I guess, 30 years ago when I wrote my first book, Maps of Meaning. So, Tucker, it's become pretty clear recently, as a consequence of converging evidence from a lot of different disciplines, neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and literary criticism, odd bedfellows, by the way, and there's more scientific and humanities endeavors involved in this convergence than those, that the structure through which we see the world is essentially a narrative, is a story.
Yes.
And so, and in fact, I asked the world's greatest neuroscientist about a month ago on my podcast, Carl Friston, if even our object perceptions were micro stories. And he said that that was clearly the case. And he's speaking as a scientist, by the way. And so that begs a question. If we see the world through a story, what is that story and what should it be? And what are the fundamental...
Oh, okay. Basically, he's saying everybody has different perceptions, whose perception is correct, but he's trying to say it in such a way to make himself seem smarter than what he actually is.
Mental elements that the story has to contain. And so the environmentalists offer us a story to live by, and it's a pseudo-religious story, and it essentially elevates the...
Yeah, it's nowhere near religious nuts like Jordan Peterson wants to claim like everything is some kind of cult or religious ideology, so that he can compare his to theirs and then claim or act like his is better because it's backed by the Bible.
The biosphere, the earth, Gaia, the earth goddess, let's say, to the status of primary deity, and characterizes her as sort of a waif-like, innocent victim, easily taken advantage of and fragile. It casts the entire human endeavor on the social front as a raping and pillaging patriarchal monster only interested in power. And it casts the individual as like a devouring mouth riding on the back of that giant, essentially. And so that's a description of the world. And there's some truth to that, right? Because we can wreak environmental havoc.
So there's some truth to people being like, what, patriarchal and stuff? Like, when beforehand, yeah, you would never admit to anything like that?
Yes.
Social structures can become power mad, and we can be carelessly consumerist, but it's a very incomplete story. It demonizes in a very pathological manner. So when you hear people say things like, human beings are nothing but a cancer on the face of the planet, or there's too many people on the planet for the earth to feed, let's say.
Usually people who say like humans are like a cancer or a virus or stuff are usually like the nihilistic, depressive people who like kind of lost all hope for like the way humanity is because like how people treat each other. And those who say like there's too many people on the earth, a lot of them tend to be like racist people who mostly just want to see the erasure of brown and black people.
Then you're seeing reflections of that underlying pseudo-religious narrative, and it's extraordinarily dangerous. Now,
he still hasn't shown like how like being an environmentalist is like also is anything the same as like being religious.
The reason that you can see that in some ways it's a religious structure rather than a careful attempt to grapple with the full realities of the world is that it has these odd features. So, for example, the environmentalists tend to radically oppose nuclear power and also natural gas. And it's clearly the case that there's nothing that reduces carbon production more effectively than nuclear power. That's
well, yeah, nuclear power is good. I can't say about like every environmentalist, but you know, probably a number of them probably has issue with nuclear power due to how sometimes, you know, power plants melt down, and that can be pretty problematic, as well as, you know, some of our storage systems aren't like the best of, you know, storing nuclear waste. But yeah, nuclear power is one of the best ways of getting like the cheapest energy. Once we get into like actual fusion, we'll have almost unlimited energy.
I don't think anybody with any sense ever debates that. And it's all...
Oh, well, the issue, you know, to be against gas, I mean, gas is a pretty clean burning fossil fuel, but it's still pretty detrimental to the environment.
Also clearly the case that if we were careful with nuclear power, and we could be because we've been building nuclear plants for a long time, that we could be providing extremely low-cost energy to people, especially poor people throughout the world. But we
does Jordan Peterson truly care about providing energy to poor people? I mean, like, I mean, if we were to, you know, ask him, hey, do you want to help give power to homeless people? I bet his response would be like, nope, poor people deserve to die.
You're not going to do that. In fact, we have an anti-energy policy in place, especially in any places that are ruled essentially by the left. And the consequence of that is, well, I just saw today, UNICEF just released a report showing that there's been a 25% increase in the last year and a half in the number of women and children that are starving around the world. It's a direct consequence of the increase in energy prices, which are in themselves a direct consequence of anti-industrial policies put in place by hypothetically well-meaning, deluded, pseudo-religious environmental worshippers of the apocalypse. It's...
Wow, That was a big old mouthful. Let's go back and hear that again.
Deluded pseudo-religious environmental worshippers of the apocalypse. It's
Pseudo-environmentalist worshippers of the apocalypse. Like, I mean, Jordan Peterson is a highly religious Christian, which Christianity is a big old apocalyptic death cult because all they care about is, Jesus being dead. Oh, and it's a big old blood cult too because, you need blood to wash away sins. All they care about is the fact that, you had a human sacrifice, Jesus, and all they care about is, the end times and being raptured to heaven.
It's an appalling situation, and it's likely to get worse, I would say, before it gets better.